Okay, today we're going to talk about doodling. So, this is a subject that I totally encourage all my students to do. But first of all, before we get to that, I just want to say that I apologize for any glare. I tried my best to get rid of all the glare so that you can see exactly what I'm doing, but I am not a photographer. I am not a videographer. I'm doing the best I can. And I just want to say that first and foremost, I don't know if this is the right order or not, but I am a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and I am a quilter. So there you go. All right, well, let's get started. So when I started quilting 20 years ago, yes, 20 years ago, it has gone by so fast. For you beginners out there, I just want you to know that I struggled just like you are right now. So it's just a process that you have to go through. You have to keep practicing over and over and over again to achieve the goals that you want out of your quilting. And that's exactly what I did. So I'm going to share my little experience with you on doodling. I don't and never have considered myself an artist, although so many people say that I am because some of the quilts that I have quilted, but I consider myself more of a doodler than an artist. So, when you were in high school or maybe even junior high school and you doodled on your folders in school when you got bored, well, that's what I did. I doodled. But I didn't know that doodling had anything to do with quilting. So when I got into quilting, someone told me you need to doodle on paper. And I thought, well, that's kind of crazy because, you're using the machine to create the designs. But let me tell you, there's a lot of truth to that because you have to learn how to create those motifs. And once you learn how to create them, it's a piece of cake after that. I mean, you need to learn how to control your machine. That's another big one. And all you have to do there is relax. So once you learn how to doodle your motifs, learn how to relax with your machine, it's kind of downhill after that. But with that said, it does take practice, lots and lots of practice. So I'm here because I want to encourage you to move forward with your dreams of your quilting. You bought that long arm machine or you're quilting on your domestic machine. Those machines are not cheap. Let's use them. Let's get them on, get them going. Yes, create those quilts. All right, so to my journey in doodling. Again, I am not an artist. When I first got into quilting 20 years ago, like I said before, somebody told me to doodle on paper. Well, what do you doodle? I wanted to learn how to make feathers. That's all I cared about back then was making feathers. So I had one of my mentors teach me how to make feathers. So I went to the dollar store and I bought, those little spiral notebooks with the paper line in them. These all have the lines in them. They're not blank. And I bought a bunch of these and I just filled them up front and back and just doodled the heck out of these. And I think I doodled in, I don't even know, probably 10, 15, 20, I don't even know. But I wish I would have saved them. I know I have them around here somewhere. I just can't find them. But my first doodles were awful. They were absolutely awful. But the more you doodle, the better you get at that, as well as quilting. The more you quilt, the better you get at that. Do you remember when you first learned how to ride a bike, or even when you first pieced your first quilt? There's processes you have to go through to learn how to do all that. And that is the same way with a long arm machine. So I finally learned how to make my feathers, and I got my backtracking down on paper, and it was a side backtracking on the doodling of the feathers, and I'll show you that here in a moment. And I thought, wow, this is pretty good. And I took it to the machine. I loaded some fabric on, and I thought, well, I can do this now. I can do this now. Well, like I said before, you have to learn to control that machine by relaxing. That's number one. And don't watch the needle. You're going to hear that from me so many times. Do not watch the needle and relax. You got your shoulders up here and your neck stuck out. You're not relaxed. So those are some very important tips when learning how to quilt on a long arm or even a domestic machine as far as that goes. Okay, back to the doodling. Well, I was doodling so much that my husband, he was looking for something he got a phone call and he was looking for something to write on. He kept turning the pages in this notebook, not this one, but a notebook like this that I had. He was turning the pages and couldn't find a blank page because I doodled all over in it. Well, he had a book made for me. Can you believe that? He had a book made for me. And this is what it is. This is the book. It's got a cover on it. He brought this home and he said, Jackie, I want you to read this book. And I thought to him, I got too much quilting to do and to learn. I don't have time to read this book. He said, just open it. So I did. I opened it, and guess what? It's a whole ream of paper. And you can see that I have doodled in this. I still have a lot of empty pages in this, but I started doodling. I colored some of them in just to get some ideas and to learn how to do these different techniques. So, you got to play, you got to draw, you got to doodle. Just sit and doodle. And you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect. Absolutely not. So when you're doodling, I have some suggestions for that. So when you're doodling, sit there with your pen. I said pen. I didn't say pencil. I started doing mine in pencil, and I kind of regret it because the first ones I did do some erasing, to kind of fix them. Well, you're not going to learn by doing that. So I say doodle in pen, so you can't erase. You have plenty of pages of plenty of paper out there to draw over and over again. So with a pen, and leave it on your paper and don't lift it up. Make your design continuous because you can't just lift your needle up and your thread up off your quilt. You have to cut the thread, right? So you want to try to make it as continuous as possible. So let's just take, for instance, you're trying to learn to make feathers. Leave that pen on the paper as you're making those feathers. I filled up fronts and backs of paper so much until I finally got it down. And once I finally got the feathers down that I wanted to learn so much, I decided to create my own feathers and put different techniques inside the feathers, like swirls or feathers in feathers and I don't know, circles and different things. So you'll come up with all kinds of ideas if you start to doodle. And when I doodled, it was usually later on in the evening after we ate dinner. And I would just sit there with my pen and paper and just doodle while my husband was watching television. I mean, it worked for me. It worked for him. So it turned out really great. Also, one thing I did not do is I did not date my doodles. Date your doodles. Put the date down at the bottom, sign your little name and your initials, and you can always go back to that. I go back to this book. Let me see if I can find a good one here. I go back to this book quite often just to get ideas on some doodling. Now, these are some of my advanced doodles. Here's one right here, and it is done in pencil, but I don't doodle in pencil anymore. But this is one of my advanced ones now that I've done. And I I go back to these every once in a while because, I may be working on a quilt thinking, oh, what am I going to put in this background? And I can go back to these doodles. But you know what? When I was making these doodles, when I was actually sitting and drawing these doodles in this book, I thought, oh, that wouldn't look good on a quilt. That doesn't look good. Well, I just kept going. I just, kept on going, kept on doodling. And then I put the book away and, or turned the page and started doodling some other things. But then I would thumb through this book, and I still do. I thumb through this book every once in a while, and oh my gosh, that looks so good. That would look good on this area of this quilt right here. So save your doodles, save them. All right, so I told you that that book was a ream of paper. So you can get a ream of paper also. You're going to punch holes in them. This is a 3-ring binder right here. This is my other doodle book. I don't have the other one filled up, but I do have another doodle book. And I have little storage areas here. And then, I've doodled in this one as well. So this one is a ream of paper, again, with holes punched in it. And this is more of, this is a thicker paper than the other one. And there we have that. I didn't fill up this page, but you know what? Eventually I might. Who knows? So I totally encourage you to doodle. Oh, look, some stuff fell out of here. And let's see, what do I have here? Okay, so we have some more doodles here that I had slid in the pocket of this that I totally forgot about. So don't hide your doodles because you might need them. So those are my doodle books, and 20 years later, I mean during the 20 years I've been doodling, but from the time I started to now, I still doodle. I still try to come up with new techniques, new ideas. And the reason why I doodle, I don't think I mentioned this, but the reason why I doodled is because I want to get the technique up here. I want to be able to get it up here on how it works so that I can put it on a quilt. So I totally encourage you to doodle. There's no excuse. You can't say, well, I'm not an artist. Well, I wasn't an artist either. I'm still not an artist. I'm a doodler. Anybody could make squiggly lines. So start there if that's what you need to do. So I'm going to do some doodling on this whiteboard here. This is another thing to doodle on is your whiteboard. So if you have one, just have fun with it. The only thing about the whiteboard, though, is you have to erase it to be able to do something else. So this is okay if I already know what I'm going to put on a quilt, but I don't know what direction or anything like that. But it also gives you ideas. You could use this as well, but always put it on paper so you'll always have it for the future. So I'm going to bring my camera up slowly so we don't make anybody dizzy, so we can see right here. And I hope I'm close enough. We'll see. So I'm just going to show you doodling. So just take your marking tool, and I'm just going to kind of make a circle and a loop. And you see, that kind of looks like a flower, right? But I didn't lift my pencil up. That's totally continuous. Now I can come around and make another loop and make another flower. And if I want, I can echo to get to another area. But this gives me an idea on how something like this would work to put on a quilt. So I'm just filling in the space, echoing around to get to another area. So that is an all over design. And you can also doodle those and practice those as well. But let's just say you want to practice some other techniques, like maybe feathers. I'm going to show you what my feathers look like first when I first started doodling. I'm moving the camera again. All right, so make sure you always give yourself a stem to build your feathers off of, especially when you're first learning how to create feathers. And if you're a total newbie at learning how to do feathers, just make a straight line because it's easier to figure out how this is done. And I also want to say, if you're right-handed, your right side, more than likely, not always, most of my students who are right-handed, their right side always looks better than their left side. But the more you practice this, you won't be able to tell either side apart. So when you're doing feathers, just have fun with it. Don't try to make it look like somebody else's. Make it your own. Now, this is how I started learning how to make feathers. So once I got this down on, you've got to have the roundness here, and you have to have this angle coming down to the stem here. But there is no backtracking. There is some echoing, just a little bit of echoing there. And that's how I first learned how to make feathers. And I got to tell you, they were not pretty at all. They were kind of squared off and chopped off and just anything you could imagine. And I tell my students, you know, it's okay. You're learning how to do this. It's going to get better. So once you figure out how to do that with a straight line, then add a little curve to it and then start doing feathers like that. And that is totally continuous, and there is no backtracking in this. And this is a great way to learn how to make feathers when you're a beginner. And once you get past all of this and you're really comfortable with it, then you can, this is most of the time, this is how I make my feathers. I hope you all can see this. So most of the time I do the humpback, which is, there's backtracking here. But if you don't want the backtrack, you don't have to have it. You can have a little echo. Oops, I just kind of messed up right there. So a little echo here and back around. So there are many ways to make feathers. Don't get, once you learn how to do them in the beginning, don't get stuck with it the same way over and over again. Advance and challenge yourself. We always have to challenge ourselves. If we don't challenge ourselves, we're not going to learn. So that's what I did on a daily basis practically, is challenge myself. I would take my little spiral notebooks. In the beginning, I had to pick up my granddaughters from school pretty much on a daily basis. I was helping my daughter out, and I thought, well, while I'm waiting for them in the car, you know, I can be doodling. So, and that's what I did. I doodled while I was in the car waiting on them to get out of school. So, I mean, if you can't find time in the evening or during the day somewhere at home, you know, there's always going to be time to doodle, especially if you really, really want to learn. So I'm going to show you a few pieces. Once I finally figured out how to make my feathers, this piece right here, and I hope you can see it because it is white fabric with white thread, but I decided that I would put something on my machine and I would start quilting it. Well, I knew how to make it, but I wasn't really good at controlling the machine very well. And a lot of people who look at this, they say, oh, that looks so good. But if you get really close to it, there are some bobbles in there. I guess that's what you would call them. But you have to be brave and just put some fabric on and just have fun with it. So now my quilting, let's see. So now I'm doing other things, just trying to create. This is a grid, and I've stitched in every other one. A computer design right here, which I micro stippled around to make the design really pop. Here are some background fills, and your background fills, you can doodle those as well, because I have, and you can mix and match them. And just, what is quilting all about? It's about having fun. So if we're not having fun quilting, something's wrong. So let's have fun. Let's loosen up and have some fun. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you get that pen and paper out, initial it or sign your name and date it, and just have lots and lots of fun with doodling on paper and maybe a whiteboard. But most of all, have fun doodling on fabric, whether it's a quilt or just a plain piece of fabric. So like and subscribe, I would appreciate. And I do have a website, Jackie's Machine Quilting, lots of things going on there. So if you'll check it out, that'd be great. So thank you so much for joining me today.